Barely 2 weeks from now, Nigerians will head to the polls to elect a new president for a 4-year tenure. According to Daily Momodu, the Director of Strategic Communications of the People's Democratic Party Presidential Campaign Council, the party's candidate, Atiku Abubakar, will be elected president of Nigeria this month. Momodu, in a statement last week, dismissed polls conducted by surveying agencies which predicted victories for either Bola Tinubu of the All Progressives Congress or Labour Party's Peter Obi in the past few months. He further stated that wherever Obi is number 1 in the east, Atiku will be number 2. Wherever Tinubu is number 1 in the southwest, Atiku will be number 2 or vice versa. Atiku will be the first to cross the line of recording 25% in 24 states. He will get 25% automatically in the 19 states of the northern regions and will pick 6 in the south-south automatically. Joining us now on the morning show is Daily Momodu, the Director of Strategic Communications of the People's Democratic Party Presidential Campaign Council. Good morning, Mr. Momodu, and welcome to the morning show.
Good morning. How are you today?
Very well, thank you.
Well, what is this confidence that Atiku will win outright? What is it based on? Because there are people who are saying, look, this election, this race is so tight that it will most likely go into a runoff. But you seem to be sure that your candidate of the People's Democratic Party will not only get the majority of the votes, will also cross the required constitutional threshold of 24 states. Elections are based on mathematics. That's number 1. It's a mathematical game. Number 2, you also have to look at the political history of Nigeria. Number 3, you have to look at the factors that determine who people vote for. So, when you look at the mathematics of it, you have to combine that with the factors that influence the voters. In Nigeria, number 1 is going to be ethnicity. Even in America, they call it the race factor. That's why you see the whites, the blacks, the Hispanics. In Nigeria, you have different major ethnic groups. And each of them are deeply entrenched. In the Southwest, majority of those who are supporting Tinubu are supporting him because he's a Yoruba man. The Emilokan syndrome is also based on our Lokan. It's the turn of the Southwest, which, of course, is not actually true because there are other tribes in the South, like in the Southeast, who are also laying claim to the Emilokan. Then, in the North, you have one mainstream candidate, and that is Atiku Abubakar. The mathematics of it is that the North already has 19 states in the 3 regions, while in the 3 regions in the South, you have 17. So we're already at a disadvantage. And when you look at the population, the voting population in the North is much more than what you have in the South. So the history of it is that whenever you have 2 strong southern candidates, it is always very difficult, if not impossible, to defeat the mainstream northern candidate. In this election, the leading northern candidate is Atiku Abubakar, with 2 strong southern candidates, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu from Lagos State, from southwest Nigeria, and the third force, former Governor Peter Obi from the southeast. The only candidate in this race who has his footprints in other parts of Nigeria is Atiku Abubakar. The 2 in the south will fight themselves, one in the southeast, one in the southwest. Atiku does not suffer that kind of challenge. I know you are likely to say, oh, no. In 1979 and in 1983, we had Malam Aminu Kano, who was in charge in Kano. It's always been like, it's the same replay.
But it's not just the Kwankwaso factor. There are APC governors.
No, that's where I'm going.
Strategic places in the north.
Don't worry.
Would they make themselves politically relevant?
There is nothing they can do. Many of them are already lame dogs. There is nothing they can do about it. The reason some of them can attack Buhari frontally, the way they are doing now, is because they know he's on his way out. When you're on your way out, all your enemies will converge. All the governors have acquired, most of them have acquired their enemies in the last 8 years. There's nothing they can do about it. They have become lame dogs. They cannot dictate. I can tell you, I have friends in APC. All their permutations today is predicated only on one thing, that the governors will make him. There is nobody who relies on outsiders to make him president in Nigeria. It is impossible. You must first of all make sure you hold your base down. Of all the candidates, Tinubu is the only person whose base is shaky. The Southwest, I can tell you that in Lagos, 3 people are going to split Lagos. Tinubu, Atiku, and Peter Obi. There is nothing you can do about it this time. The 3 will get their 25%, then I don't know who takes the lead. And that's all that we need. In the North, today, Tinubu is relying on governors. The governors might give him 25% in a few places, but in most places he will not get it. That is clear to me. So whenever you have 2 strong southern candidates, it is going to be difficult. Right. And you can see that Obi is eating into the southern votes.
Okay, so thank you for the permutations and computations and the numbers, the number analysis. But let's talk about polls, because that's also an indication in some instances of the pulse of the people, of the inclinations of the people. Recently, STARS, a Pan-African organization, had released perhaps the biggest sample, 6,220 people polled. And in their findings, 27% of the people were going for Peter Obi, 15% of the vote to Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and your candidate comes in third at 12%. And this was, and in terms of the breakdown of these 6,220 people as sample polls, what's your take on polls? Because as we mentioned earlier on, your candidate hasn't fared very well in polls. It's come second in or third, perhaps, in some of the polls. And their poll, by the way, aligns with next year's and ANA polls.
I enjoy reading polls, but in a largely illiterate community, polls cannot determine who wins. Majority of the voters in some parts of the North, if you do the polling 20 times, they will tell you it's because who are those who are more likely to be able to use technology? They are in this side of the country. How many people were polled organically? Let me use that word. It has to be organic. I am telling you that it will be a fantasy of the highest order for anybody to say Obi will win most parts of the North. It is impossible. I'm not a gambler. I would have put a bet on it, but I'm telling you that it is impossible. You see, polls are based today more on the theory of who is likely to vote. And of course, they depend largely on technology. Technology has not permeated Nigeria enough to the extent that you will go into Sambisa forest, you will go into Kebbi, you will go into Zamfara, you will go into Sokoto, and you'll be able to get people to respond to those questions that pollsters look for. So that is why it is very easy for them. All the polling that I have seen, none has indicated that they went into the grassroots. None. So if they have misfired, you can't blame them, because it's the same thing I remember when I met the publisher of, what's it called? These guys who do the rich list. Forbes. He came to Nigeria. And I told him, I said the criteria you use for determining the richest people is faulty. He said, why? I said, because you are basing everything on stocks In Nigeria, we have a man who is making money every second, and he owns most of the companies alone. Yet, you will look at people who are also overexposed.
Who is that man?
Oh, Mike Adenuga, the chairman of Globacom. He owns, every year they will put him at number 6. There is nobody in Africa who makes money per second and owns the company alone. It's the same thing with Polestars.
He owns Glow.
He owns Glow. So, you understand? That's the only man. So it's the same thing with Polestars. They make sure that everything, and I've worked with a polling company before. As a kid, I know some of these kids will sit in a bukateria and they are filling the forms.
So you're saying all the polls are false?
I didn't say they are false, I said they are faulty. Okay. So there is a difference. They are faulty. If they can show me evidence that they went into the rural areas to speak to the people, you can see it. And all you have to do is look at the pattern. Even many times in the past when they predicted that some people would win, and they didn't win.
Okay, so, but I'll challenge some logic. The first one I'll challenge is the fact that you said technology has not deepened enough. Based on empirical facts, I don't think that's true, because you have over 200 million telephone lines in this country.
Out of which I alone, I probably own about 10.
So give or take, even if you average the telephone lines, at least knock on wood, you still have well over 100 million people with telephone lines in this country. And also the way you know is tele-density has increased. You can see in the factorial numbers, these are based on empirical facts. So if the polls are calling people, you can't say, okay, there's no spread. And another way I'll use to challenge that logic is the fact that when they were about fighting insurgency, the first thing they did was to turn off the telephone masts that affected a lot of people. So if in the remote areas, telephone masts were turned off, it's to show you how much telephony has penetrated in those areas. Just to also further buttress, Ayo's point, there's been Bloomberg polls, there's been next year polls, there's been ANA polls. All of these polls constantly, taking over a sequential period of time, has shown Peter Obi at tops. Fitch Solutions polls, this is the second time they are polling now, and they have shown Asiwaju Bola Tinubu as winner. So when you put all of this together, that's one part of it. I know you want to respond to that. Secondly, the other part is, other people will say, are these not just assumptions you are making, trying to mitigate the power of a Kwankwaso in the north, and also the power of a Bola Ahmed Tinubu, owing to the fact that these governors, what if in a case that they actually deliver? What if in a case that he wins Kano and he wins a couple of other areas? Because he's going to get down the wire, and they will further, fight your argument by saying, your own boss, MK Abiola of blessed memory, went against a northern candidate to fight your logic, and he won in 1993, predominantly in parts of the north. Bashir Tofa was a northern candidate, straight against a southern candidate, and he won. What will you say about this, sir?
So I'll start from MK Abiola.
Yes, sir.
Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, with all due respect, is not MQ or Awolowo. So let's get that. Abiola was able to build his business network across Nigeria. Unless you are able to tell me what business network Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has built across Nigeria, then we can begin to talk about MKO Abiola. Abiola in Taraba State had his rice plantation, his rice mill there. In Lafayette, he had the Abiola farms. He had Abiola bookshops. He paid money to all Nigerian universities. He was a consummate businessman. Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, he is just a politician. So there is a world of difference between him and Abiola. Then you use the word what if. I read in Sidney Sheldon that the word if is a 2-letter word of fertility. More often than not, you say if this, if that. So what if not? So Rufai, trust me, in America, it took America over 200 years to produce an Obama. A presidential race is not a day's job. And I like to give the example that even in Ghana, a smaller country to Nigeria, it took John Kufuor 3 attempts. It took Atamins 3 attempts. It took Nana Akufo-Addo 3 attempts. It took our own Buhari 4 attempts. Are you saying Tinubu is more popular in the north than Buhari? That he will now have to depend on the north to make him president? The answer is no. The only man who has been able to build that bridge across Nigeria is Atiku. He's been at it for 30 years. It's not a joke. There is no part of Nigeria Atiku we get to do today and he will not have one friend or the other. Tinubu has to struggle to do that. And now he has to rely. And that's one of the reasons why this currency issue is the way it is. Because they need to pump a lot of money into those places where he's not popular. And with the currency controversy, it becomes more difficult if they are not able to spend that money. That is it. It's a very simple thing. They are just struggling to build. And all your polls say, Obi cannot win the election. That one, there is no question about it. Because you need structures. I was the first person to mention the issue of structure. I said, oh, he's talking rubbish. You need structures. You will see what will happen in the coming days. I can't reveal our strategy. You will see that the only party with the ready-made structure for that election is PDP. There is no other party.
Okay, it's good you mentioned this vote buying by saying, oh, the APC, they're trying to stockpile funds. The substance of a statement issued by Debo Olugunagba, also PDP spokesperson, he was saying that, look, some governors in the APC, they are trying to stockpile 22.5 billion, and that is APC running a campaign under an APC government that is behind the scarcity of new notes. But we started this program this morning by reviewing a statement issued by Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in which he expressed concern about the situation. He critiqued the disruptive nature of the policy in terms of execution, implementation, and he offered concrete ideas as to what can be done. And Bayo Ononuga, I think it was who issued a statement saying that, look, the PDP is just lying, and that the PDP must provide evidence that APC is stockpiling funds, is criticizing the Naira policy because they want to do vote buy. Does the PDP have any such evidence?
Dr. Abati, I know you, and I'm not trying to patronize you, to be one of the most brilliant journalists in Nigeria. And I know that you don't suffer from amnesia. Who was that man who was crying in Abeokuta that the currency swap was targeted at him? Who was that man? You are not able to answer.
Well, is that the evidence that he has stockpiled money? He wants to stockpile money and buy votes?
That was the foundation. How come outsiders are crying louder than the bereaved? How come this thing affects everybody? In fact, Atiku Abubakar was the first candidate to do a broadcast and say, hey, people are suffering. Please make sure you have more notes in circulation. While one man was crying and saying this thing is targeted at me. And whether they release money or they don't release money, I am going to win. You couldn't answer. So you jumped from the foundation to the roof. That's what you have done, Dr. Abati. Our evidence is simple. Those who are crying today about the currency, they never united against insecurity. They never united against inflation. Nigerians are suffering. Every Nigerian today is suffering. Yet the governors did not come together. They didn't go to Supreme Court. What is in their interest in this currency business? It is obvious that they need money to buy votes, and we say it with every sense of responsibility that is the issue. Otherwise, why would any man say, oh, hey, they are targeting me? Have you ever seen a ruling party where its own operatives are so unruly as to be attacking their own president? A Buhari that they all used to worship, suddenly they are worshiping him in public.
Well, just before you go further, somebody has joined this conversation. He said, Dele Momodu once said on video that if Tinubu could pick his party's nomination, it would be difficult to stop him from being president.
I said
what has changed?
Nothing has changed. Then let the person give you the rest of the video. I said only if PDP can come up with a stronger candidate, and they came up with Atiku Abubakar. People like to quote, they lift what they like. It is in the nature of quotes. If I want to quote where this man praised Tinubu or supposedly praised him, I can do so by lifting the ones that are convenient or relevant to me. The man did not go further than where I said, unless PDP can produce, and they produce. Let me tell you, in retrospect, all of us who competed against Atiku at that time, it is now that we value Atiku more, because I don't see how anybody else would have been able to take on Tinubu, but only Atiku. Atiku is a superior former vice president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, a man with so much experience, a cosmopolitan leader, a man who has traversed the length and breadth of this country and has been able to make friends. And go and look at all the people around him. They're all young people from different parts of Nigeria.
All right, so two things. First of all, you talk about structure, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that the Obi camp has also spoken about at,
They always dismiss it.
Yes, in terms of, he says that it's even that structure that they are kicking against, because the structure of the old is one of corruption, is the old way that the young people want to do away with. So he's not what kind of structure. What kind of structure does the PDP have that's different from hold on, I just want to finish. What kind of structure does the PDP have for Nigerians that's away from the old that the young people are clamoring for? Because what you're saying is that your candidate is part of the old system that they voted away. The second thing I would like to talk about, because you talked about the internal wranglings within the APC, with the governors, speaking against the policy of the president. But we can say the same of the PDP. And I'd like to just ask you, in terms of the G5 governors, what's the updates on that? I know they haven't yet said who they'll be supporting, as they promised us in January, but that has blighted the PDP campaign, because they've said that a house divided itself against itself cannot stand. 5 of your governors have had some agitations, and they'd come out to say they were not, and they have demonstrated that they're not supporting your presidential candidates, at least up until now. What's your take on that?
What you have in PDP is a civil war. What you have in APC is a world war, where governors are attacking their own president, attacking the leadership of their party frontally. In PDP, yes, 5 people, one of them agreed that he lost the election. That's normal. Some people lose election and they are able to go away quietly. Some people lose election and they become inconsolable. So Wike has been inconsolable. We've been trying to console, we've been trying to advise, we've been trying to plead with him, and he has refused. It is his choice. But in APC, what you have is a volcanic eruption. They are fighting as if Buhari is already out of power. In fact, Governor El-Rufai threatened that once Tinubu wins, we're going to reverse the policies of Buhari. I've never heard such a thing in my life. So that is that. On the issue of structure, the obedience are beginning to see the importance of structure. What do you mean by structure? Even this your office, without a structure, there will be no show this morning. Structure is not something that is out of this world. It is a needed requirement. How many governors have you got? Which is what Tinubu is banking on, that my governors will help me. How many senators or senatorial candidates have you got? How many people from House of Reps? How many people from House of Assembly? They haven't got much of that. You're also going to need agents nationwide, thousands of them. That will form part of your structure. So a PDP that has been in existence since 1999, how do you want to compete against them when in every word they already have their structures? In every federal constituency, they already have their structures. If you say people, we don't pay shishi, you can see how people are moving away in droves in some of these smaller parties because the structures are not there. The structures also include the funding of each of those structures. But we shall see in the next 1 week what will happen. The polls will not help Obi. If they let 1 million polls say Obi is going to win, I can tell you for free that the structures don't favor him. Atiku is going to get all his 25% in the 19 northern states, and all he needs to cross 24 will be just 5 in the south. And in the south, as I said, wherever Obi is number 1, Atiku will be number 2. Wherever Tinubu is number 1, Atiku will be number 2. And Atiku will actually pick some states in the south. I'm very sure about that.
Well, Dele Momodu, thank you very much. February 25 will soon be here, and we will all be here, and we'll see. Thank you very much for joining us on The Morning Show.